hold on. Perfect. So let's just, oh, yay. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Okay, perfect. This is, oh my gosh. And now Caitlin, my sister-in-law, just texted and said, sorry, I'm not going to be on. I think I woke up with the flu. Oh man. Oh, everybody has it. Um, we need to pray for favor and health, which I normally do. So, okay, chapter 4 is on page 77. And this is one of my favorite chapters in the whole book. I wish he would have gone longer with this one. It was so good for those of you that read it. And I don't know why, but this one just really resonated with me a lot. But I love his definition of excellence, which is doing, doing the best that you can with what you have. And that is excellence, right? Doing the best that you can with what you have. I like in here, he said that he also believes that excellence has a spiritual dimension on 77. I believe it's the fulfillment of Jesus's directive to go the extra mile. And actually, no, wait, let's see, 2023, my verse of the year that I chose was Matthew 5:41, which is, oh shoot, I didn't even bring my Bible in here, you guys. Wow, see, I'm really out of it. But I love that verse, Matthew 5:41. I think it's 41 and 42, about going the extra mile. If anybody has it and you want to type it in the chat, would be awesome. If not, no big deal. But he said Jesus was a person of excellence. And I don't know also if any of you have watched The Chosen, or have been in the process. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. I haven't finished all the seasons yet. Oh, let me let Nikki in. But if you haven't watched that, Mary Beth, have you watched it? Oh, it's so good. Highly, highly recommend Chosen. But you can tell when you watch it that Jesus really was a person of excellence. And so he says in Luke 2:52, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. He did all things well. He was known for being above average. And I feel like a lot of us, especially those of us that are high achievers, we want to be above average, right? Like who wants to be average? I mean, that's not really fun. On 78, favor is undeniably linked to excellence. And then if you go down, he says, because even though God's favor is free, it isn't cheap. To have favor on your life, you must seek the Lord, say the same things about yourself that he is saying, believe him, trust him, and obey him in all things. You also must rise above the human tendency for mediocrity and stand head and shoulders above all those around you when it comes to the important aspects of your life. You must demonstrate excellence. And I liked this at the bottom of 78. When the average person is slapped on the cheek, for instance, he won't respond by offering his other cheek. When the average person has his tunic stolen, he won't offer the thief his cloak as well. When the common man loans money that becomes uncollectible, he won't respond by forgiving the debt. The individual who is compelled against his will to walk a mile certainly won't offer to walk two. And so you can see the difference between an average person and a person of excellence to demonstrate his presence in their lives, not with their words alone, but also with their deeds. Oh, hold on, Diana. On 79, what Jesus was saying is that there's a lot of traffic on the first mile of any journey. John Maxwell talks about that a lot. He actually has done several talks and sermons and stuff on there's less traffic, a lot less traffic on the first mile of any journey. A lot of people, even unbelieving people, are willing to go 1 mile. But the moment that you get to that second mile or any additional miles, there's hardly anyone on the highway, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, is see you at the top because it's less crowded there. And it's so true when you think about it. He says, if God's people are supposed to be different, then we should be different. We shouldn't blend in. We shouldn't be beige or average. We should excel. We should think differently, speak differently, and act differently. And we should excel. He said, do more than is expected of you. Shock people, mesmerize people, live by a higher standard. Pay more attention to the equality of your own behavior than you do the quality of other people's behavior. And then on 80, man, I highlighted like this whole chapter. So, but especially some of you that are in the business field, like so much of this resonated, especially 80. But I liked at the top, he said, you should leave an imprint on every person you encounter. As a result, the favor of man will follow you and the favor of God will seek you out. God doesn't want his kids to do just enough to get by in life, which, by the way, how many of you know people who, I mean, you don't have to say this out loud, but who do just enough to get by? Like, we all know people that do that, right? And those usually aren't people that you look up to and you're like, man, I want to be like them. They do just enough to get by. He said he wants his kids to excel. He wants them to be the very best at whatever they choose to do so God can receive the glory that shines through their lives. And I think about this because those of you who have kids, like, you want your kids to excel and do the very best possible. And that's how God feels about us. Excellence is simply doing your best with what God has given you. I want to like print this next paragraph and put it everywhere where I work with people. Christians, therefore, should be the best businessmen and women. They should be the best teachers. They should be the best musicians, the best cooks, the best soldiers. They should be model citizens. They should be model students. They should drive the cleanest cars. They should have, except for that one, by the way. I feel like we should remove that one. They should have, excuse me, the best kept lawns. They should wear the cleanest and most appropriate clothes. They should do the kind of work that never requires a follow-up effort. They should exhibit the best attitudes while they do these things. Do y'all agree with that, or am I just like a total freak about stuff like that? I thought that was
I immediately went and got my car washed after I heard this. I read this.
Totally agree.
And I made sure I didn't have any French fries in my car.
Beth. I'm so glad. I know my car is like the one thing that I try to. Mary Murphy knows she's in my car. I'm like, don't look at my car. It's so dirty. But yes, Jamie said I underlined the whole paragraph. Yeah. Yes, totally. I just think that that's so good. I mean, he goes on to say, one thing I definitely believe is that Christians should be the best workers because our work consumes a huge portion of our waking lives. Christians who are bosses, therefore, should be the best bosses. They should honor their employees, treat them with respect, reward them for faithfulness, and pay them generously. At the same time, those who are not bosses should be model employees. They should work hard, be honest in all their dealings, speak honorably, represent their company well in the marketplace. A believer who cuts corners on the job or joins other employees in bad-mouthing the company is not worthy of God's favor. And on 81, as Christians, therefore, we should be the hardest working people on any job site. At the bottom of that second paragraph, we should give more than we take, and we should do more than is required of us. Employees seem more interested in their benefit. I underline that because that's some of my seem more interested in their benefits than their productivity, more concerned with their breaks than their customers. I'm like, man, that is true sometimes. But I wanted to share with you guys one thing this week, just on a personal note before we go on, because this made me think about this. Let me find it in my text. But I was kind of just asked to give some feedback and then it for something, and then it turned, oh, where is it? And then it turned into me giving like a little bit more of my time the last 2 weeks than I normally would give. And some people were like, I feel like you're going to be taken advantage of by doing this. And so then I was talking to Adam about it, and he said, this is what he texted me. I'll share my only frustration is you getting taken advantage of, your time and your energy and your wisdom. That's just my protection of you. And I'm just going to be honest about it. I'm sorry that sometimes because of the track record, I'm just worried that you're going to get taken advantage of, which he was right in just the track record. But this is what I text him back. And I wanted to share this with you because this book really helped me feel this way. But I text back and said, honestly, babe, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for always protecting me. However, I feel protected and highly favored from God right now, so much so that I'm just not concerned. I've been praying fervently about this year and my influence and our opportunities, and I feel like God will reward me for that kindness. Honestly, I just want to be like that with everyone and everything. 99% of people don't reciprocate, but that's okay because I'm just working for the Lord. And really, I would not have said that a couple of years ago, even probably a year ago. Like, my mindset has switched. And you know what? Like, God's got your back. This whole excellence paragraph, when you're working for the Lord, like, you don't need to be working for anybody else. Like, he's going to make it right no matter what. Mary Beth, were you going to say something?
I was tell him what John Maxwell said in the lunch we had with him, Dana, because I felt like that was one of the most powerful things that I heard at all of the summit is
In
when
the
you
lunch,
ask the question. Yeah. When you asked the question about
Oh,
being taken, do you ever feel taken advantage of?
yes, I did. And yes, great point. I'm glad you brought that up. In the at the summit in Charleston this year when we had John Maxwell in the private VIP lunch, I asked John, do you ever feel like, I know you're such a giver and you always go the second mile and you're always such a person of excellence, like all of the above. Do you ever feel taken advantage of? Because sometimes I have. And he was like, Dana, I just love you. You're so sweet. And I was like, okay, then this was a dumb question. I shouldn't have asked. He was like giving me that. And then he's like, but let me just tell you, you asked one question, but I think you meant to ask two questions. And I'm like, okay. And he said, you asked, do I ever feel taken advantage of? And what I wanted you to ask was, do I ever feel taken advantage of? And do I ever get taken advantage of? And he said, those are two different questions. And he said, I get taken advantage of all the time. And he said, you're always going to when you walk the second mile, when you do things of excellence, when you turn the other cheek, blah, 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 blah. And he said, so I've lost, millions of dollars and I've had horrible burnt relationships. And he kind of went through this little list really quick. I think I might have it recorded. I need to find that and share it because it was so good. I think somebody in the room, I feel like Jen, maybe you recorded it or my brother did or somebody did. But anyway, and he said, but the second part is, do I ever feel taken advantage of? And he said, the answer is no. And he said, I don't have my mindset allow me to feel taken advantage of, even though I get taken advantage of all the time, because he said, I'm not here to, gain will with men. I'm here to earn, will and favor from God. And he said, and when I do what the Bible says, and I follow the journey that God laid out for me in his word, he said, then I'm going to get taken advantage of, but I don't feel taken advantage of because God will keep, in other words, in our lingo, God will keep the receipts. Like let him, like he will make all things wrong right in his time for his purpose. So I was like, man, that was such a good answer, because I don't know if any of you feel like that sometimes, but I went through a season last year where I really kind of felt, which was so dumb when I look back at it. And it was little things like stupid things. Like, remember Mary Murphy, I text you, I'm like, did your kids say thank you for that? And I'm like, so there's like little things, but little things turn into like bigger things. And then you're like, oh my gosh, the whole world's taking advantage of me right now. Um, so it was really good. Steph?
Yeah, well, and not biblical, but right. If they want to do it, it's on them.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I've been using let them in my brain a lot lately. But you can tie
But
it
I
back to,
also think that that can come with action too. So if you feel like, okay, you don't feel taken advantage, and John, like he just, I mean, he was quick to say it. So he had conviction about what he was doing. I mean, there was no
you
hesitation.
didn't
Like he
even
was,
have
and
to
I was like,
think about it.
holy
Yeah.
moly, like that is such a powerful mindset. So even though that may happen, I think my takeaway for that was it's all mindset. Like
Yeah.
as givers, like we're always going to be taken advantage of. We're likely never going to get anything in return from that person. But if our mindset is that of serving, and who are we serving, right? People are God, then it's a mindset shift with that to you can't get taken advantage of if you are acting for the Lord. People are
Yeah.
always going to take advantage of us.
Yeah.
So that I just thought that was so powerful.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks for remembering that. Yes. So true. Ruth?
I was just gonna say this whole chapter, it reminded me so much of growing up. Like everything that we did, my mom was always like making us at that time growing up, like go the extra mile. When we cleaned the church, it was like, there's no one else here cleaning, and we were the ones cleaning. When you stack the chairs, you turn them the right way. So they're all going the right direction. When you wash the windows, you wash them top to bottom and you get the corners. Like everything that you do, you're doing it in a sense of excellence. So I was like, my mom, God bless her, like she really raised us to be that way. And then when we went on to like, I was a classical musician, everyone was different in our family, that like everything you did when you practice, like you pause the timer, because that's not really 45 minutes if you're not playing the instrument. So if you take the instrument down, pause the timer, and then when it comes back up, you can start it again. Like things like that. And then going into the workforce. And one of the things that I kind of strive towards, and it's hard, but what we're doing, we're not working for ourselves, we're working for the Lord. And when we get to heaven, the measure that we use to judge everybody else, and the measure that we've been holding up in life, that same measure will be used on us. So
Yeah.
like really thinking of, this is not about me. This is not about like who's doing what around me. This is about me and my spirit before the Lord and maintaining excellence before the Lord. And that was like a huge part of, I talked to this team leader the other day that was just, she was like so discouraged. And we spent 2 hours going through, you know, what she was doing and, gossip and this, and but you know how it happens in market centers and stuff. And in the end, I just looked at her and I said, but do you realize, like, when you do it this way, when you do it the right way, when you go the extra mile, like, you are not reporting to anyone else other than God himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's your boss. So really think about that when, you're feeling like worn out. Poor thing was like crying her eyes out, but it's hard. It's like legitimately, it is actually hard. You do feel tired. Like I'm sure this morning you're like, I could just cancel. I could just bump this another day. I could get someone to cover for me. But like getting up and just doing the thing and going the extra
Mhm.
mile, it's so, I mean, like it's a life-changing decision to do that and to lead your life
Yep.
in that way, and people watch.
Yeah, I totally agree with that for sure. Love it. One time, Linda McKissick, a lot of y'all know Linda, but she's like my greatest mentor. We have our podcast together, and she just has taught me so much uh, through having proximity to her the last several years. But we went to this event in Highlands, North Carolina, a few years ago. John Maxwell was doing a small round table. It was like 25, 30 people in the room, and he had Dr. Henry Cloud there. And I've followed Dr. Henry Cloud for years. He's like one of my favorite authors. He wrote Boundaries and Trust and tons of others that I'm forgetting. He's just so good. And I paid a lot of money to go. It was just with him for a day. It was a dinner the night before with him, and then it was him the next day. And ironically, I guess that I don't know what happened, but anyway, I got food poisoning that night after dinner. And when I tell you guys that I puked all night, like from the time that I checked into my cottage after dinner until the next morning, I mean, it was horrible, like violent food poison. But I mean, like, I paid thousands of dollars to be there the next day. So I was like, there is no way that I'm missing. So my eyes were black from puking so much, but I got up the next morning and I was like, I'm just going to go. Like, I'm not going to miss it. If I have to run out and throw up, I have to run out and throw up. And so I went, and Linda's so funny. Linda, in the middle, she knew because I'd been texting her, like she went and got me medicine and brought it, set it on my porch, like in the middle of the night, because I was like, thought I was going to die. And when I got there, she leaned over and she's like, I just want you to know that if I ever have to go to war, I hope you're in my foxhole. She's like, after this, she's like, I have so much more. She's like, I always loved you. I always had respect for you. But she's like, after this, like, she's like, I would go to bat for you for anything. I'm like, thanks. But it is true, because you just think about like, okay, you're just gonna, obviously sometimes you can't do that stuff, but it was a funny story. So, okay, on 82, I liked in the middle, wherever you work, you should be the one setting an example for others with your work ethic and your attitude. Even like the people that you serve, where you volunteer. I mean, I always think about too, like with the kids' friends, and just, I don't know, like anywhere and anybody. It says they realize that work is a God thing and a blessing which God designed for man in Genesis 2. On 83, it says, but work itself was never a curse. In fact, it was one of the 7 blessings that God gave to man when the world was perfect and sinless, in order to make man's life enjoyable and meaningful. And I actually never thought about that before until I read that. It said the point is that work is a blessing, not a curse. It's the mechanism through which a man finds his purpose, fulfills his calling, and leaves his legacy for future generations. By the way, talk about like if you're having a bad day, going back and reading that, I'm like, man, okay, well, that really puts things into perspective. On your job, treat people wonderfully, do excellent work that speaks highly of you and the God that you serve. On your job, leave a legacy and a sweet smelling savor unto the Lord. On 84, the second paragraph, this is actually, I think, was it Stephanie or Mary Beth, one of y'all said it's a mindset. If you live the extra mile mentality, and if you practice the extra mile in the workplace, I mean, really in your life, I cannot promise you that life will always be easy. But I can promise you 3 things. First, when your life has concluded here on this earth, you'll be greatly rewarded in heaven, which is the ultimate goal, right? Second, when people remember you and speak of you, they will describe your life as an example of Christian character. Oh, hold on, let me let her in. You will definitely impact those who watch you over the years. And third, you will enjoy increased favor in your life as long as you live in this world. You will enjoy the favor of your family, the favor of your friends, the favor of your employer, and those who worked alongside you on a daily basis. You will also enjoy higher income in the favor of God. God bless down just a little bit. God blesses financial givers by giving back to them. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Luke 6:38. Excellence is a form of giving too, because excellence is simply giving more than is expected of you. I liked on 85 the quick little thing about Lee. I'm not sure how you say their last name. The former chairman of the Chrysler Corporation said, the kind of people I look for to fill top management spots are the eager beavers, the mavericks. These are the guys who try to do more than they're expected to do. People of greatness are not impressed with average. People of greatness are impressed with excellence. God, who is truly great, also is impressed with greatness. But unlike corporate executives, God doesn't look for greatness in the 1 or 2 big performances of our lives. This is so good. He looks for excellence in all that we do, going back to what you said, Ruth, especially the little things, the small things, the routine things of life. He looks for excellence in our work, in our efforts as parents, in our volunteer work at church, in the casual conversations that we have with ordinary people in everyday life. I think that is so good, because it is the little things. This is such a stupid example, but when I read that, I thought of, Addison now almost wears the same size clothes as Adam, and so they both like to work out and play tennis in those just Lulu dry fit shirts. And the tag, once you take it off of a Lulu shirt, I can't tell if it's inside out or not. And so every time I'm folding their laundry, I'm always in a rush and I'm always trying to hurry, and I'm always like, oh, I'll just fold it, and if it's inside out, they can fit. And then I'm like, no. I'm going to make sure that it's folded the right way inside out. It's little stupid things, but once you have that of your mindset, then you're like, okay, I'm just going to do it the right way. And be a person of excellence. Let's see what Jamie say. I'd love to pull out all the key points and yes, use them for teaching lessons for my teenagers. Yeah, this is so good. I think it would be these are such powerful lessons for teenagers or for young adults for sure. On 86, the master in the middle of the page, gave responsibilities to the servants, each according to his ability. Matthew 25:15. This is really good. I underlined this for a reason. He did not entrust 10 talents to the man who was only capable of handling 1 talent. Jesus knows your capacity for service. He will not give you more than you can bear, but he also will not give you less. And I thought that was so good, because sometimes I feel like we can dip into comparison a little bit, oh, well, they're doing this, this, and this. But really, this exactly says what God did for us. He gave us what we can handle and what our capacity is. And everyone else's talents might be something different than ours. On 87, first, we learn that the Lord expects something from each of us. He won't bless people who hide their talents and do nothing with them. If you guys have read, man, we might need to do another book, Bible study book club on Taylor Davis's book, Parable for the Republic. Mary Beth, I know you've read that. It is so good, but the whole book is about multiplying the talents that God gave you. You should not hide or store your talents. He gave them to you for a reason. And so being able to, so I love that he said that, because he won't bless people who hide them, being able to use them. And then down on 87, God gives things to people in different measures. He said he gives each man a measure of faith, Romans 12:3. He gives individuals their own unique measure of blessing, their own unique measure of fullness of Christ, and he gives individual believers their own unique manifestation of the Spirit. Oh yeah, comparison is on 88, second paragraph. Excuse me. You should always be honored to serve God and bless others through the things that you do best. But you should never be ashamed of the things that you cannot do at a level with others. You should know your own capabilities, and you should know your own limitations. Why? Because comparing yourself to someone else is one of the stupidest things that you can do. On the day of reckoning, God won't give his assessment of you by holding you next to someone else's standard. God will judge you by holding you up against your own potential where you had great talents. I know she's on, but she's not on, but I always think about Heather in this. I'm like, if Heather and I have to stand next to each other, when we get to heaven, God's gonna be like, man, she never missed a beat. She's never wrong about anything. She knows everything. She's so organized. Dana's a hot mess. She had to keep her together. But then when I read this, I think about that because that's Heather's like that's God's assessment of Heather, and that's different than God's assessment of me, right? From everyone who has been given, much will be demanded, and from the one who's been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. Luke 12:48. And then at the bottom, God knows what you have the capacity to do, and he will hold you accountable to do that, nothing more and nothing less. On 89, there was just some great examples of expecting more. I just highlighted, prove yourself faithful with what you have, and God will give you more responsibility and more corresponding blessing. Many of you have experienced that. So you know that when you're faithful with what you have, then he gives you more. On 90, oh, I actually had a note in here, great for the kids at their young adult life. So we were on the same page, Eileen. I forgot that I had that in here on 90 and 91, but at the top of 90, he said, people pray all the time for newer, bigger, better, brighter things from God, but they have never demonstrated their appreciation and respect for the things that God has given them in the past. So why would God want to give them more? That is like, whoa. Directness from God. He said, show God your faithfulness with that which he has already entrusted you, and he will be inclined to entrust you with more. Joel Osteen from Lakewood Church has been perhaps the greatest example of excellence. When you read about him, man, he really has been a person of excellence. Dave Martin knows him personally, and he just said he's just one of the most people of excellence he's ever met. And which, by the way, Joel Osteen's still on my bucket list to meet. So I keep telling Dr. Dave Martin, one day I'm going to hop on your plane and run with you over to meet him real quick, and then I'll fly myself home. But he said, I've seen in my life in ministry, I've learned so much by watching this wonderful man of God and good friend in a lot of different situations. He said, I've actually seen Pastor Joel point out a single small light that was up in the trusses. Then I've watched his excellent staff repair the light by the end of the workday. Whether I observe his work, his house, his car, his clothes, etc., I always see excellence in his life. The Bible tells us that Jesus was the greatest model of excellence, and he did all things well. Mark 7:37. Amanda, I love it. And then on 91, just to wrap up, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Become a channel of excellence in all that God has given you to do, and you will certainly see his hand upon you and his favor all around you. His favor will always follow your excellence. And I just thought that was so good. So good. And that was the part that I actually underlined for the kids. And I feel like I do say that to the kids a lot, like do it with excellence. So much so that we had a little scare at the end of last year when we met with Amelia's principal. I feel like I always talk bad about Amelia. It's not talking bad, just spilling the tea on her. But her principal said, she's such an achiever. Like she said, I just worry that she wants everything to be perfect. And so it takes her longer to do some of this stuff because everything has to be so perfect. And Adam looked at me and I was like, uh-oh. But she was like, but she's the best in the class because of that. And she helps everybody else. And I was like, okay, you just have to make sure that you have it under control a little bit. Okay, any thoughts, any ahas, anything anybody else wants to share from this chapter? I'll go through and look at the questions really fast. Or actually, here's one of them, if anybody, and then, Stephanie, go ahead.
On page 78, you may have said this, but I just want to say that it really, in the middle paragraph, to have favor on your life, you must seek the Lord. Say the same things about yourself that he is saying. Believe him, trust him, and obey him in all things. And I struggle with saying negative self-talk. So that's something that really I underline. And then I'm sure you said this, but page 82, a strong work ethic is one of the most important things a winner can possess.
I love that. I didn't have that underlined, but I love that.
And then on just one more thing on page 87, it says, first, we learn that the Lord expects something from each of us. And second, we learn that the Lord rewards his servants equally for unequal returns. I just thought that those were three things that I don't think you mentioned that really stood out to me.
I love that. Yeah, I love that so much.
Mom has something.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah. Diana, hi.
how are
Look
you?
at y'all walking again.
Yes, we are.
Gosh, so
So
good.
you were talking about John Maxwell and saying that you asked two separate questions. Am I taken advantage of? And do I feel taken advantage of? I think when you are taken advantage of, which I think we all are, that strive for excellence. The second thing is if you feel taken advantage of, that's where resentment and bitterness comes in.
Yep. So true. So true. And once it creeps in, it's hard to get out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like that. I love that.
Great point. Thank you for sharing that. Yep. So great. One of the questions he has in here that I thought was good. Can anybody think of an instance in your life when you traveled the extra mile, going longer and farther and digging deeper than anyone had a right to expect, and what happened, or how did you feel about yourself afterwards? Any thoughts on that?
Maybe that goes back to, because it takes me back to kind of my corporate days. I think it's the expectation. Like, are you looking for accolades from the person that should be acknowledging your extra mile? So who are you seeking? And I know I've been incredibly guilty of that. You know, you take on a project and you do far beyond, and then the next project's being shoved down your throat before they're even like, hey, thanks for that one, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I really wish I would have had all this study and all this resources when I was in corporate, because I was like, I was an incredible leader then, but what would it have been like had the company taken advantage of, you know, leadership in this way. And then it also, I made a note on that, Dana, on page 79, you know, when it was talking about going the extra mile and how lonely that can feel.
Yeah.
I had a leader at when I was in corporate that said, you know, Mary Beth, with each promotion, it gets lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. And I kind of paused on that for a minute, because as I've been chasing after Jesus, like there's been seasons where it's felt super lonely. Like, you know, some of the friend groups that they don't understand it. Like, you know, maybe it makes them a little bit uncomfortable. So I just wrote, like, you know, the higher you get or the further you get in your faith, like there could be seasons of loneliness until, you know, God puts the additional people in your life that he wants to be there. That doesn't mean that everybody else is gone, but like you've got to get real comfortable being lonely and sitting in that season, and going the extra mile
Yeah.
oftentimes is going to put you in a season of loneliness maybe.
Yeah, so true. I wish I had my notes with me, but I don't. On another one of the roundtables that I've done with John Maxwell was Dan Cathy, Truett Cathy's son, who started Chick-fil-A, who founded Chick-fil-A, and now Dan runs it. Well, actually Dan's son now runs it. They're one of the only Chick-fil-A is one of the only corporations in America that's actually grown by the third generation. Most of them don't make it past the second generation. But Chick-fil-A is actually almost at the fourth generation. But their verse for their entire organization, it was the Matthew 4, it was it Matthew, whatever the Matthew one. Hold on. I think Amanda typed it up there for us. But yeah, Matthew 5:41, which was go the second mile, go the extra mile. That's Chick-fil-A's entire verse for their whole company. Like that's their vision for their whole company. And when you think about it, I mean, when you go to Chick-fil-A, I feel like we all experience that at almost everyone that you do. Oh, Dylan, I didn't even see you were on. Yes, I worked for Chick-fil-A for years. Yes, ran so well. I know we've talked about them many times, but that's who I think of a lot when I think about like the excellence part, because their whole company is built around excellence, and it's how they train their employees, and it's everything that they want to give out to their customers and their clients. And man, has it really worked. I want to give you guys I had to wrap up a little early today. So before we wrap up, I want to just give you guys two questions that we don't necessarily have time to answer, but you could think about with as you go about the rest of your week. The first one is what are the one or two abilities that God has entrusted to you to make you stand out in the crowd? And really, how are you using those special talents and gifts from God? Like, if you were like, man, okay, these are the one or two things that God gave me. What are those things? And then let me find the other one. 1 second. Oh, shoot. I just had it. It was a really good one. Oh, it was this one. Can you think of an instance when your excellence gave you an opportunity to make an impression for Christ or open the door to witnessing for Christ? Which I think is something that, I don't know, I really want to get better at. I know her camera's not on, but I look to Jen Winter a lot for that because, man, Jen is so bold in asking people to come to the Lord. Like when we were on the Dominican Republic trip, I mean, she's just like, are you ready to accept the Lord today? And these people are like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But she's so bold in asking, and I love that about her so much. But yes, the question is, can you think of an instance when your excellence gave you an opportunity to make an impression for Christ? So to, tell someone about the Lord or your faith, or just make an impression. Dylan, you're great at that too. You are such a person of excellence. It's like one of my favorite things about you. And I know that it gives you the opportunity to be able to work, to lead people to Christ too. Okay. Jen said that's the Holy Spirit, not me. Well, the Holy Spirit's working through you, Jen, so that's good. That's one of your abilities, I think, probably. Okay, guys, any last thoughts or questions, and I'll close us out. Did you guys like this chapter? I loved it so much. Yeah, such a good one. I think we could still share some of this with those of you that have older kids for sure. And then don't forget next week, man, I wish I might see if Linda McKissick would pop on next week, just to talk a little bit about this, because this is her superpower, chapter 5, problem solving. This is a really good chapter too. So for next week, just read through 93 through 116, just chapter 5 of problem solving. That was a huge eye opener for me too. God rewards people who solve problems, and that it's a really, really, really good one, really big one. That's really good. Okay, guys, I'll close this out in the prayer that Dr. Dave wrote for excellence. His prayers are much more efficient than mine, so I'll read his. Ready? Heavenly Father, the world has affected my thinking. Everything conditions me to do just enough to get by. Over the years, therefore, I have absorbed a mindset of mediocrity. We've become accustomed to taking the paths of least resistance. Lord, just please forgive us. Help us realize that every word, every deed, every action, every performance is a reflection of your life within us. Help us to represent you with excellence in all that we do, because we are mere mortal humans with physical limitations. Help us to establish our priorities so that we won't exhaust ourselves. Help us to focus on what's important so we won't burn out trying to do everything. Help us to approach all the important matters in life with a heart of worship and with a spirit of excellence. Help us be all that you created us to be, and equip us in everything that we do. Help us to avoid Satan's snare of guilt and condemnation. We can only be the person that you made us to be, but the person that you made us to be is a person of excellence. So help us remember that, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Can you please send us that prayer? Like a
Yes. Yes. Hold on. Let me see if I can put it in the chat really fast. Would that help? Hold
Yeah.
on. I can email it to, let's see. Hold on 1 second. See if I can throw it in here. And then you might be able to download it. Oh, yep. Okay, here it came. 1 second. Actually, I should do that, Eileen. I'm glad you said that. I need to send you guys his prayers. See if it'll go in there. Because they're really good. And sometimes I don't read the whole thing just for time. Okay, can you open that? Can you guys open that? It might be sideways, but yes, I can add it to the email. Absolutely. Yep, I'll start adding that page to the email. Did it open?
it says down. I'm trying.
Okay.
Yep. You.
Oh, perfect. Oh, no, add you, Stephanie. Are you not on the email list? Shoot. Okay.
No, because I just show up. I didn't register.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, I'll add you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week. See ya next Wednesday.